The war in the Iberian Peninsula had already been raging for years. Spain had become one of the greatest challenges to the European dominance of Napoleon Bonaparte. What began as an attempt at political control quickly turned into a brutal and prolonged conflict. Guerrilla warfare, popular resistance, and allied armies constantly weakened French forces. Spain was not just a battlefield, it was a wound in Napoleon's empire. Meanwhile, across Europe, the balance of power was beginning to shift. After the disastrous Russian campaign, French strength was fading, defeats were mounting, and Napoleon's enemies were becoming more aggressive. In the peninsula, Allied forces were commanded by Arthur Wellesley, 1st Duke of Wellington. Wellington was not an impulsive general. His strategy relied on discipline, patience, and precision. Over the years, he had built an army capable of facing French forces on equal terms. On the French side, command in Spain rested with Joseph Bonaparte. Despite his name, Joseph lacked Napoleon's military genius. His leadership depended heavily on his marshals, and coordination between French forces was often inefficient. By 1813, the French position in Spain had become unsustainable. Allied forces advanced steadily, pushing the French northward. Retreat became inevitable. Huge convoys followed the French army. Wagons filled with gold, artwork, and treasures, looted over the years, moved alongside the troops. This was not just a military withdrawal, it was the retreat of a declining empire. The decisive moment would take place near the city of Vitoria. The terrain was complex. A wide valley surrounded by hills, cut by rivers. Wellington studied the region carefully. His plan was not simply to attack, it was to encircle. He divided his army into multiple columns, coordinating a simultaneous advance to cut off all French escape routes. It was a bold plan, but it required absolute precision. On the French side, confidence still remained. Commanders believed the terrain could be used defensively, allowing for an organized retreat. But there was a problem. Too much baggage. The roads were congested. Movement was slow. Discipline began to break down. At dawn on June 21st, 1813, the battlefield awoke under tension. Allied forces began to advance. From multiple directions, infantry columns emerged from hills and valleys. The French were caught off guard. The attack did not come from a single direction. It came from everywhere. French lines attempted to resist. Cannons were deployed. Infantry formed defensive lines, but pressure mounted rapidly. Wellington maintained control. Every movement was coordinated. Every advance was calculated. British, Spanish, and Portuguese troops pushed forward with discipline, steadily forcing back the French lines. The battlefield turned into growing chaos. Artillery roared. Smoke covered the valley. Shouts, commands, and musket fire echoed across the land. The French attempted to but the terrain, once seen as an advantage, now trapped them. Rivers limited movement, congested roads blocked retreat. Allied columns kept advancing. One of them cut a major escape route. Another pressed the French center. The encirclement was closing. Joseph Bonaparte realized the danger too late. An organized retreat turned into a desperate escape. Wagons were abandoned. Treasures were left behind. What had been an army began to collapse into disorder. Wellington intensified the attack. The pressure became overwhelming. French lines began to break. Soldiers retreated in confusion. Entire units dissolved. The battle was lost. At the center, French resistance collapsed. Allied forces surged forward. Retreat turned into chaos. Men ran. Horses bolted. Wagons crashed. The main road became a bottleneck of destruction. The French army was trapped. No room to maneuver. No coordination. No clear escape. What followed was one of the greatest defeats of Napoleon's forces in Spain. Tons of gold and treasure were captured. Artillery and supplies were abandoned. The defeat at Vitoria was not just military. It was symbolic. It marked the end of French dominance in Spain. After this battle, French forces began their final retreat out of the peninsula. The tide of war had turned. Napoleon's empire was beginning to collapse. Meanwhile, Wellington solidified his reputation as one of the greatest commanders of his time. The victory at Vitoria opened the path for the invasion of southern France. The war was no longer distant. It was approaching Napoleon's own borders. The battlefield of Vitoria fell silent, marked by the remains of a decisive defeat. There, not only an army was broken, there, an empire began to fall.